Wonders never cease, and this story is a true testimony. This story is about 5 people I crossed paths with at a time they were needed most in the wake of Hurricane Milton. On Tuesday, October 8, every news report centered on Hurricane Milton's landing in Florida as the worst Category 5 storm in over 100 years, and was expected to make landfall on Wednesday. The traffic jam heading north on Interstate 275 by late afternoon was due to the heightened warnings to evacuate, and I was not among them, but was taking care of last-minute errands in lieu of the impending danger. And so was George, Acclaimed, riding with me. Along the way, George became concerned about a whirring sound coming from the right rear wheel of my SUV, and he continued with a diatribe about what the issue was caused by and how to fix it. I felt he was overly concerned and wished he would change the subject. I was relieved when another topic was introduced in the conversation. But a couple hours later, while traveling alone, my left rear tire went flat. I jacked up the car and unscrewed the nuts from the wheel, but the wheel wouldn't budge from the axle, not even after several attempts. So I reinstalled the nuts with the decision to drive the vehicle as is to the nearest shop towards downtown St. Petersburg. Everywhere by now was closed or soon to be. It was about 2 miles to get downtown, and the garage I aimed for was closed. There was a young couple hanging about next to their truck, and I asked them if they had a tool to help me get the wheel off. I'd never had a wheel seizing up like that on the axle, but Joyce, unlike her boo and myself, had an experience like that and suggested using a jackhammer to loose me. Hers in the truck was too small, and it could not budge the seizure either after several more tries. The weather was still bright and warm, but the clouds gathering was ominous of rain and the danger of the impending storm. I was with this couple for about 30 minutes, and now my last resort was to head home on almost a bare rim on one tire. I was about to do just that when Joyce said, "There's an air pump at the gas station across the street. Why don't you see if you can pump up the tire?" I didn't think of that, not after rimming the tire for 2 miles already and some of the threads began to show. Could it still hold enough air to get me home? I had nothing to lose by trying. The store gave me quarters for $2 bills, and soon the air pump was connected to the valve of the flat tire. "It's pumping," said Joyce, who watched with eager expectation. The tire was filling up. It was taking the air. And soon I kicked the tire, and it was hard as a rock. Thankful, I told my saviors goodbye after giving them some cash as a token of my gratitude. On arriving home, after about 7 miles under the wheel, there was still air enough to spare. I decided to try for another garage on 34th Street to see if I could replace the tire. Garage 1 was closed, and so was Garage 2. But there was an air pump outside labeled "Free Air," and I was able to replenish to the tire what it lost. I continued up the road. Garage 3 was closed, and so was Garage 4 and 5. but 5 are 2 African Americans winding down from work. One of them, who said to me, "We don't do tires, but there's a tire shop across the street," he said, pointing. "You better catch them before they're closed." "Thanks," I said. I angled the vehicle like Evel Knievel to cross the street. I got to the shop as 2 Middle Easterners were about to pull down the shutters. I detected their accents to be Arabic while explaining that I needed a tire. One went to fetch me a Michelin, and the other jacked the SUV up and loosened the nuts on the wheel. I chose not to say anything about the wheel seizure and my struggle with it. I wanted to see how a professional would handle it, so I stood aside and watched. The nuts unscrewed from the wheel. The mechanic bent and tried to remove the wheel, but it would not budge. He stood up, he paused a second, stood back, and with his right leg he gave the wheel a hard kick to the top and another hard kick to the bottom, and the wheel tumbled off to the ground. It was a relief to see the wheel fall so easily to the ground, but it was more breathtakingly funny how the struggle ended. By the time the new wheel was installed, I had an urge to check the other rear wheel on the right, and to my surprise, this wheel had a big bump on it. And it occurred to me this was the reason for the whirring sound my client had detected earlier. And the mechanic asserted it could be a disaster to have a blowout from it in a hurricane. So I got another Michelin to replace that one as well. Now I'm convinced that everything I went through, starting with the flat, was to get me to address the danger that was pending with the bump on my right rear tire, especially when a dreadful monster named Hurricane Milton was on the way. Now I am very thankful for the people who spoke like angels. Remember to subscribe, like, and share.